We also fell into the trap of wanting to be something that we were not. We were throwing around words and terms and phrases and, rush, go Greek, all these different things. And we thought like our marketing is legit. We are making these insane Canva graphics with these cool phrases. Like we were really just trying to be something that we weren't, but we were like, we're crushing this right now. Meanwhile, I can imagine someone else just in the room, scroll, no idea what that means, scroll by, what is that? You know what I like? They were not paying any attention to us. They're like, I don't know what you are, what you're trying to be, what you're doing, but I'm not interested, right?
Well, this conversation has been, as RJ said, we like some puns here. This conversation has been fire. So let's move into segment 3. This one is fueling growth, the purpose of systems. At Fired Up, when I first started, actually, in the job description for the job I was applying to, one of the key things was you need to be systems obsessed. And at first I was like, what does that mean? But it truly means that growth is not just a one-time process. It is a system. There's so much that goes into it. It is not just a fully structured recruitment process, and that's how you grow. That's not it. That there's so much more that goes into growing and supporting an organization. And so as we head into our final section or segment here, this is a spark of what can create, just a small spark of what can create a holistic growth system. So what I'd love for us to do is share some lessons learned, some key points that lead back to us being systems obsessed. Let's highlight why systems matter and why we believe in them. And if we're lucky, maybe we'll be able to share a little light on some winning tactics that have created, go with me on this, a bonfire of growth for organizations, campuses, and partners that we support, right? We love our fire puns here. So, as we think about systems, one question that popped up often is, okay, so I'm VP of recruitment for my chapter, or I'm VP of recruitment for my council. Like, how do I scale this up for the whole community? Like, what do I do for community? You talk about community growth. So how do I scale up what we're doing? What do we do? And how do we reach beyond just our council? Whether it's I'm in a MPHC position and I want to work with MGC and Panhellenic and IFC, or I'm VP of recruitment for Panhellenic. How do we scale that up? What are some ideas maybe that you've seen that have worked, or, some thoughts that you have on that?
Yeah, I think about my friends at Virginia Tech. The community's done a great job
Yeah.
of of essentially clarifying what fraternity and sorority is at Virginia Tech for perspective. We forget. I make fun sometimes as a joke, like we all within the fraternity and sorority community, we walked through a portal. Bear with me. We walked through this like membership portal, and when we joined, sometimes it's really hard for us to remember what it was like on the other side of the portal. But the problem in our industry is that we're only recruiting people on the other side of the portal. And so now we're on this side and we're using language, we're assuming norms and wearing clothing that makes us on this side of the portal feel a certain way, or what we believe uh, helps identify us in such a certain way. And what we forget is on the other side of the portal, that it was, 18-year-old RJ who his parents did not go to college, had no clue about fraternity and sorority at all, questioning what this language that's randomly written on a bunch of these t-shirts actually even is. And we can't assume, we do oftentimes assume way too much about the person that we were on the other side of the portal. And it's really hard to deprogram ourselves in this. And the reason this is important is because Virginia Tech, and a couple other communities, Iowa State, I'll give a shout out to that community. They're figuring this out too, like helping to define things for prospective members. And the way within our system that Virginia Tech has specifically done this is they work really hard to all incoming students to do some really targeted marketing efforts that drive students to a specific form, that they don't just put like their contact information. There's a really cool question in there that helps them identify maybe some interests or elements of their identity that they might be interested in exploring, or values that they, and so one of the unforeseen or really positive outcomes that they've experienced in the last year is on that form, some students of Jewish students, or people that students that would identify as Jewish, get to actually select that as an option in this initial, like, really think top of funnel would be the language, right, used for this form. That lead, or that person's information, it doesn't just get only shared anymore with IFC organizations, or with specifically only it's just like, it helps as people be able to explore more of their interests around, and it also doesn't make the organizations so much more generic anymore, right? And it allows the community to then communicate to those students, hey, just FYI, there's some actually pretty cool organizations here within our community that that actually were built for students like you. And that has been a really cool way, and really just practically, for them to help the entire community grow. When historically, if we rely on just registration forms for specific council, specific councils, or or not even registration forms of some organizations who have interest sessions, and there's a whole different, like, those students never find the organizations that might have been a really great fit for them. So at Virginia Tech, give a shout out to them. They've done a great job of kind of building a form and then embedding some of that natural interest.
That's great. Thanks, RJ. I agree. I think all of us in some way have worked with Virginia Tech, and gosh, their long-term partnership is just, it's something that I have just really enjoyed supporting, and I love their investment in growing their entire community. We just love them, right? We love them. Go Hokies. So I love just every year over year, the improvements and the very conscious effort that they make, that is whole community focused too. So I'd like to maybe think about this idea of, growing your community and a little bit more, but thinking from the campus perspective of, in almost every single one of our digital classrooms that we have, so we've got quite a few digital classrooms that cover a variety of topics, but in particular for our digital classrooms for IFC, Panhellenic, and our CBFO, undergraduate students and some advisors take these too, for people to be certified recruiters. We have an assessment, and at the end of the assessment, in almost every single classroom, in every single classroom, we ask, what's one thing you would have liked to have learned? And one thing that came up in every classroom was, this is great, this is super helpful, but how do I tailor this to my school? And so some people would say, how do you tailor this to a small private school? How do you tailor this to a liberal arts school? What's the difference in large school versus small school? Very huge university versus, smaller. I'm in an urban setting and we don't have the same resources as, maybe some of our other schools. So it sounds like the students or those completing the assessment feel like there's these barriers to recruitment based on where they go to school, and that it's not one size fits all. Every school is unique. I think we can all say that. All four of us went to very different institutions, and had wonderful experiences where we were. But I would, and so with that, I think we all believe in dynamic recruitment, and we could see how it worked on our campuses and how it could today. And so I'd love to know from your perspective, what are some metrics that everyone could adopt that are tried and true, no matter what type of school you go to, no matter the size of your organization. When we think about recruitment, what are some things that we want every organization to believe and know that they can do, no matter their size or where they go to school?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is that you just need to know your audience and be okay with who you are. Be okay with whatever the culture is on your campus. It's not lost on me that most people have seen, Bama Rush documentaries, seen that on TikTok, and now we might be dealing with a generation of people that maybe were interested in fraternity and sorority that might think that is the only experience that one could have. That is a very singular experience that one could have. And maybe that doesn't resonate with someone. And then in addition to that, there are current members in their chapter saying that is the only experience P&Ms want. And so we have to replicate that. So they're pushing, going against the grain so aggressively as to what works for their community. They're like, no, now we all need to replicate what is going on at this institution, at this state school, this university, instead of just being comfortable in who they are and what their audience wants. So Colleen, you said we come from very different experiences, and my experience is also very unique. I went to a small private liberal arts women's college, Brenau University, and we also fell into the trap of wanting to be something that we were not, right? We didn't play to our audience, right? So we were, like RJ, like you were saying, we were throwing around words and terms and phrases and, rush, go Greek, all these different things. And we thought like our marketing is legit. We are making these insane Canva graphics with these cool phrases. Like we were really just trying to be something that we weren't, but we were like, we're crushing this right now. Meanwhile, I can imagine someone else just in the room, scroll, no idea what that means. Scroll by, what is that? You know what? They were not paying any attention to us. They're like, I don't know what you are, what you're trying to be, what you're doing, but I'm not interested, right? So we weren't respecting our audience, our own student body. We were just simply trying to be something that we weren't. When in reality, like that wasn't what Brenau was at all. We weren't those girls. Like we were curating a different experience than that. I think if we leaned into that more and just were our true authentic selves and said like, this is actually what our chapter experience is like this is what we do. We're not going to make this image of who we are. And then like you come to some of our events and it's just completely different. And that also contributes to the retention, but that's another tangent, but misaligned expectations there. So to go back to your initial question, I think lean into who you are. Don't try to be another university. It is okay to be your small school. I love COB with all of my heart. And we're now tried. Let's do primary recruitment. We did not need a fully structured recruitment. We didn't even need a partially structured recruitment. We needed to just find the people, find our women who fit in our organizations, have those one-on-ones, invite them over to our chapters. We didn't need structure. We needed connection, right? So lean into that. It's okay. It is totally fine. And throwing out the word partially structured recruitment, I know there are going to be some women on here right now that this is going to be your first year, maybe second year that your campus is trying partially structured recruitment. Lean into it. It is okay. You're going to be fine. If you want some support on that, contact me. I'm the girl to talk to about PSR or COR, but that's just my shameless plug.
I love that. Thank you, Saf. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd love to hop in here. I love everything that you just said, Saf, about like really sticking true to your campus, your community, who you are, the audience of students on your campus. Like some of our tech colleges, our STEM schools are going to have a very different audience than our liberal arts schools, than our large state schools, and our private institutions. And so staying true to who our audiences are and the students that we have on campus is so important. I know that when I work with campuses, and when a lot of us, probably all of us on this call, work with campuses, there's a thing that we like to use when we think about building a growth system that really helps campuses personalize and assess the way that their growth system is working on their campus. And that's by identifying 7 different things, or looking at 7 different areas. And those areas are growth technology, member training, marketing strategy, retention, lead education. So our P&M or interest education, that's chapter coaching and growth data. And within these 7 things, we can start to really, really personalize and individualize what growth looks like on our campus. Growth technology, like Saf mentioned, right? Some of our schools in Panhellenic land are making the switch from primary recruitment to partially structured recruitment to continuous open recruitment. And the technologies that support those different processes are going to look different, right? So what are we using that supports the growth that's going to work best for us, right? When we think about marketing strategy, and Saf mentioned that her chapter was like all about we're killing the marketing game. And so often I'm like, yeah, like we're putting flyers up on the wall And one of the things that I love to point out the most, I'm like, yeah, you guys are we're all putting flyers up on the wall. This is great. How many of you walk around campus with your phone in front of your face, your AirPods in, and you're staring at the ground? Like, what if we just wrote with chalk on the ground? I'm almost always seeing students looking at the ground and never at the walls around them. So what if we switched that marketing strategy, right? Where are our leads coming from? Identifying some of those things. And just using and I could go into all 7, and that would be a whole podcast in and of itself, but using these 7 indicators to really assess our growth system and how is our growth technology working for us? How are we training our members to build relationships and really effectively build connections with our audience? How are we reaching our audience? What does our marketing strategy look like? How are we educating our interests and our leads and our potential members? And how are we focusing on coaching our chapters as advisors of the community or advisors of our chapters? How are we using the growth data to make data-informed decisions? How are we onboarding and retaining? Because that's also a crucial part of our growth system. We can't put all this effort into recruitment and, like we talked about in our earlier segment, and then just kind of drop off on the retention portion because we're not actually growing. If we can't retain and engage, we can't grow as well. So when I think about personalizing and individualizing campus systems, I like to use these 7 kind of indicators to do that, because you're really able to personalize and individualize what do each of these areas look like on our campus and what can we work better on? What do we do really great at in order to create better systems for our individual campus?
That is such a good summary of our 7 indicators of growth. When we think about being systems obsessed, we really lean into that. And those are truly made for any size organization or any campus. So thanks for tying that all together with a perfect little bow and lighting that on fire. I've really enjoyed today's conversation. I know that we've probably all got to run. It's been a wonderful time together. We've stoked the flames of innovation and we've shared wonderful insights from Heard Around the Phire. So thank you for joining me on this journey today. Before we go, really quick, I'd love to hear some key takeaways from each of you what are some things that you'd want someone to walk away with? What if you had to, at the end of today, at the end of listening to this, what's one thing maybe that you're like, gosh, if you take one thing away, I want you to take this away. RJ, will you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Is that all right? Or does somebody else want to
Great.
kick us off?
That's great.
Put you on the spot, RJ.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll go back to the very first thing I said. What we're doing and what our team is doing alongside all of our partners is really professionalizing fraternity and sorority recruitment. And in order to do so, I mean, there is a lot of things we could do. And there's a lot of ideas that we've shared, and there's a lot of strategy involved. There's tactics, there's technologies. And to Becca's point, sometimes distilling down what is most important, like what are the first 1, 2, or 3 things that we need to do, that's actually the way that we can be most helpful. And so I'd say the key takeaway for any leaving here for me, and hopefully for everyone, is you're not alone. This is a lot. You're right. If you feel like this is a lot, you're actually right. And the good news is you're not alone. We've been doing this for over 20 years. We've been learning a lot. There's been some things that we've tried that we thought worked, and then we found out didn't work. There's been some things that we tried recently that worked really well. There's some things that we have seen partners try that didn't work well. And I just want you to know you're not alone. We'd love to be able to be helpful at any time. You can contact any of our team members, and we'd love to be your guide. We're your partner in fraternity and sorority recruitment.
Absolutely. Thanks, RJ. Becca, what about you?
I have absolutely just loved chatting with my friends here, my fired up friends. I think my big key takeaway from today is, first of all, exactly what RJ said, like, you're not alone in this. And as you start identifying and evaluating and assessing your growth systems or your recruitment tactics and processes, we don't need to overhaul the system overnight. We don't need to completely gut and recreate the way that we recruit tomorrow. Like, this is not going to be something that happens in the next 8 business hours. Like, I promise you, it is okay to choose one area, a small step forward, and then keep taking steps forward until we continually and with over time build the systems that we need to see on our campuses. Because if we try to do it all at one time, we're going to burn ourselves out. we might just crash the whole system. And it's just not going to be something that's healthy or safe and or inclusive for our members or for our potential members or really for anybody who's trying to do that overnight, right? And so I want you to know that it's okay if you feel like you can't change everything by tomorrow. But what I do want you to do walking away from this is identify one thing that you can change and start working on that. And then every week, every month, every year, continue finding the small things and build it up brick by brick until you have a really, really strong foundation.
That's awesome. Thanks, Becca. And Saf?
Yes. I think my biggest takeaway as it relates to growth is to, and call to action is to stop making assumptions and to get out of your own way. For me, especially in my experience, when we were thinking about who would want to join our chapters, and you might be thinking, oh, this person who's on the soccer team, or in my case, this person who is cast in a show every semester and doesn't have the time, right? She's not going to really invest in this organization. Don't make assumptions, because I really, really needed something else outside of theater. I really needed a whole different community of women who was going to uplift me. I needed someone who's going to be sitting in the audience cheering me on at these shows, right? So don't make assumptions. Reach out to that junior, reach out to that senior, reach out to that person on the soccer team that you think doesn't have enough time. Someone, don't make assumptions about people's finances. If they didn't know that you pay dues for a sorority, that doesn't mean that you just write them off and say they're not going to be able to afford being in this chapter, right? Give them the resources and the information and just be incredibly clear. Don't assume that they know all of your lingo and your abbreviations. Just be incredibly clear when it comes to the joining process.
Thank you, Saf. That's great. Well, gosh, friends, this was super fun today. I so appreciated this opportunity to just sit around the fire with you and chat, talk through some of the things we've heard, questions we've gotten, and talk about how we truly believe in a growth system that will move all of us forward. And I can't wait for the next conversation. We'll keep the fire going and we'll answer those burning questions, touch on those overheard conversations. But as we wrap up, remember the fire within you is the spark that ignites change, y'all. So let's do it. Join us again soon. And don't forget to stay
Fired
up. There's so much wisdom in this room. Y'all, I just feel so honored to.
I'm actually loving this call. This was a good
Man,